Let's all stand, gather up, and we'll sing The Light of Mine. Community Church Divine Science, Let It Shine. Do we have any visitors here today? I don't see any. I just see people. Well, that's good. If you have your cell phone on you right now, it might be a good time to turn it to mute or turn it off. Today we have a good service ahead of us. Julie Hickox is with our special music, and Ann Dieter is going to be our Act 1 reader. Ann?
Of course, this is made for Doug. My reading today was taken from Dr. Wayne Dyer's book 10 Secrets for Success and Inner Peace. Most organized religions have taken on the task of explaining God to their congregations, including all of the rules that God supposedly has laid out for humankind. You cannot come to know God through the experiences or testimony of others. This must be done by you. I urge you to meditate because it will bring you more peace, remove stress, improve your surroundings, and deflect negativity. All of this and more will definitely show up when you meditate regularly. I include the embracing of silence as one of my top 10 secrets for inner peace and success. Primarily because it's the only vehicle I know of for making conscious contact with God. God is that which is indivisible. There's only one omnipresent presence called God. This presence is everywhere and is a force that creates and sustains life. It can never be divided or cut up into pieces. There's only one power in the universe, not two. Everything in our experience as a human being appears to be in duality. However, up exists because of its opposite, down. Light exists because of dark. Right exists because of wrong. You've never seen a person with a front who doesn't have a back. An outside without an inside. A north pole of a magnet without a south pole. Our physical world is a world of dichotomies and combinations of opposites, always divisible. Silence, however, is the one experience you can have that's indivisible. You cut silence in half, and all you get is more silence. There's only one silence. Therefore, silence is your one way to experience the oneness and the indivisibility of God. This is why you want to meditate. This is how you know God rather than having to settle for knowing about God. You will find your answers in the silence. Remember, it's out of the void, the emptiness, that everything is created. When you write a musical note, the silence from which it comes is just as important, is as much a part of the note as it is the sound. So it is with healing anything or any relationship. Going into the quiet and listening will inspire you. I can't imagine speaking or writing without first going to God in silence. I seek alone time and space to allow my inspiration to emerge.
Thank you, Ann. Please join me as we sing our opening hymn displayed on the wall. It's all three verses.
Sorry.
Testing. Am I on?
You're on.
Here a little bit. Well, good morning, everybody.
Good morning, Daisy.
Thank you for braving the balmy 17 degrees we have outside this morning. With no wind, it's actually pleasant. So I thank you for coming. Lots of churches actually canceled this morning because of the cold. But not us. We are hale and hearty. I'm so glad to see you all here. So the Bible verse today comes from Matthew 7:1 and 2. This is from the Phillips translation. Don't criticize people, and you will not be criticized. For you will be judged by the way you criticize others, and the measure you give will be the measure you receive. Of course, we've heard this 1,000 times. I have an interesting story for you. There was a young man waiting for his flight. And he went to the little newsstand and he got a bag of donuts and he got his newspaper. So he went and sat down at the table. And as he sat down, he noticed that there was a scruffy sort of old homeless man sitting across from him. So he's reading his newspaper and he gets a donut out of the bag and he's eating and he's reading his paper. And all of a sudden he hears some rustling and he looks over his newspaper and the old guy is taking a donut out of his bag. So behind the paper, he's making a face. He's not going to say anything, so he just continues to read his paper, and he takes a donut out, he's eating his donut, and he's reading the paper very intently. And then he hears his flight is called. But he's really annoyed with this old guy. It's like, why is he eating my donuts? So he folds up his paper, but then he hears a rustling, and he looks over, and the old guy is taking the last donut out of the bag. And he's standing there, and he's about to put it in his mouth, and the old guy looks at the young man, and the young man is scowling at him. So the old guy, the old homeless man, I should say homeless-looking guy, because, I mean, why would the homeless guy be in the airport, right, getting up for the flight? So the old man's looking at him, and the young man's scowling, and so he takes the donut and he breaks it in half, and he gives the young man half of the donut, and he sort of looks at him and sort of like nods, like, okay, you can have half, and the older man walks away, and the young man's like, what? He folds up his newspaper, and he turns around to pick up his coat, and he sees there on the seat is his bag of donuts. He'd been sitting on them the whole time. The donuts on the table weren't even his. They belonged to the older man who had bought them at the newsstand and was sitting down before he came. So, basically, judge not. Enough said. Okay, let's say our statement of needs. Find your order of service. God is all, both invisible and visible. One presence, one mind, one power is all. This one that is all is perfect life, perfect love, and perfect substance. I am the individualized expression of God, and am ever one with this perfect life, perfect love, and perfect substance. I always like to read it when I'm up here, because you can really hear it in the microphone, and if you mess up, everybody hears it. It's like that same thing with the Our Father, right? You got to have it there, you got to read it, because actually I've heard all of us, we are so used to saying it the old way when we grow up. We still sometimes I'll hear it and it's around me, people saying it in the old way, because it's just so deep in there. Okay, Julie. Thank you, Julie. That was beautiful. Now's the time in our service to get quiet, so I invite you to relax in your seat. Get quiet for a moment. Thank you, Jana. Let's get quiet. Relax. Let's take a deep breath. Let it out. Let's take another breath and let it audibly out of your body. Just relax in your seat. Let the music just take you away. We're going to release our burdens, release our joys, and just be right now. Be still and know that I am God. I am still in thy presence, God of my being. I am quiet and I am peaceful, for I put my trust in thee alone. A great stillness steals over me, and a great calm quiets my whole being as I realize thy presence. My heart knows of thee, O Most High within. It is still in thy presence and puts its whole confidence in thee alone. May I come to know that God is with me every moment of this day, as presence, as knowledge and power. God is present as life, truth, and love. God is present as purity, perfection and harmony, stillness, rest and peace, as discernment, as justice and success, as wisdom, health, and strength. God is present as fullness, as freedom and satisfaction, as mind, thought, and word, as spirit, living soul, and body. God is all in all. I do not look to my body or any other outer thing as the source of good or ill, as the source of life or death, health or sickness, strength or weakness, satisfaction or dissatisfaction. For God alone is the source of all things, and God is spirit. Spirit is my life, my strength, my breath, my atmosphere. There is no outer source or cause, for God is the only presence, the only power. God is the fullness that filleth me. Let's just be quiet for a moment and absorb those words. And while we are still, let us pray together the way Jesus taught his disciples. Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed is thy name. Thy kingdom is come, thy will is done, on earth as it is in heaven. Thou givest us this day our daily bread. Thou forgivest us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Thou leadest us not into temptation, but dost deliver us from all error. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. The title of my lesson today is A Story About a Story in the Bible. Rabbis have been telling stories about the stories in the Bible ever since the Bible was written. These stories are called midrashim, which is the plural of midrash. Midrash is a way of thinking. It's a mode of self-expression. It's a way of talking about, around, and through these stories that are in the Bible. It helps us answer questions about what's written in the Bible and the stories. It helps us to actually remember the stories, because the stories that they tell about the stories in the Bible are very interesting and usually kind of fun. They're told in a new way and in a new manner in order to give us more insight. Rabbi Mark Gelman says that these age-old stories are important to us in this constantly changing world. There are so many old midrashim collections. However, Rabbi Mark Gelman has written his own and has modernized them for the modern world. So here is an example. It is called The Pharaoh and the Frog. Don't worry, I'm not going to read it to you. This is just to keep me on course, make sure I'm in the right place at the right time. When Moses went to Pharaoh and said to him, "You need to let all your slaves go," Pharaoh said to Moses, "What are you, nuts? No way. No, no. Those slaves do everything for me. They walk my dog. They cook in the kitchen. They wash the floors. They go to the post office for me every day. I mean, come on. No, there's no way I'm letting all my slaves go. And in fact, right now, I would like for you to get out of here and go, what do you do? You like 10 sheep? Just get out." Okay, so Moses goes to God and he says, "Listen, I felt like a real idiot today. That whole sentence, let my people go, didn't work on Pharaoh at all. I need to go back with some big guns if you want me to really do something." So God agrees. So the next day, Moses appears, and he doesn't actually even, he walks into the throne room, but he doesn't say anything. He just walks in, and he takes his staff, and he goes thwack on top of the pool that's in the throne room, and it turns to blood. And Pharaoh he's very impressed by this, and he's just thinking, "Oh, I might have to let those people go." When his magician comes flying in, and he goes, "Piece of cake!" And he turns the goblet of water into not into wine. Jesus did that. No, he turns it into blood. And Pharaoh's like, "Ha! You almost tricked me, didn't you, Moses? Get out!" And as he's walking out the door, Moses can hear him say, "I hate blood." So he goes back to God and he said, "Listen, the blood idea was really good, but it wasn't good enough. I need something else. Come on, give me something else, God." So Moses goes back to the palace the next day, and he makes frogs just rain down out of the sky. And Pharaoh says, "I might have to let those people go. I don't know." Just as he's about to utter the words, the court magician comes flying in, and he says, "It's a cinch. Stop it right now. Watch this." And he goes, and purple frogs fall out of the sky. Different from the green frogs that God sent. Now there's purple frogs too. So everybody's looking at them, and it's like, "Oh, you're kidding." And Pharaoh says to Moses, he goes, "You almost had me there. Forget it. Get out." So when everybody gets out of the palace, Pharaoh goes over to the balcony, and he's looking up in the sky because he wants to see if there's still any frogs there. And it looks like this, and all of a sudden he hears, splat! And this gigantic green frog falls on his face. And it's all slimy, and it's disgusting. And he's like, "What is this?" And he hears the frog say, "Listen, I was up on a lily pad minding my own business, and all of a sudden this big wind picks me up, and here I am on your face. I'm looking up your nose. No offense to your face, but really, I want to get back to my lily pad. Can you give me some directions?" And Pharaoh is freaking out, and he gets the frog off of his face, and he throws it on the floor. Of course, it doesn't hurt him because he just hops away. He's got slime all over him, and he runs into his rooms, and he's like, "I hate blood. I hate frogs." Okay, now the next day, Moses has gone back to God again. He said, "Well, frogs didn't really do it either. He didn't let your people go." Now, he goes back to the palace, but he doesn't go in the palace this time on the third day. He doesn't go back to the palace and go in. He stands outside because someone has informed him that there are wanted posters all over the inside of the palace. Picture of Moses, picture of that frog. It says, if you see these two guys, get them out of here. So he doesn't go in. So he's standing out there and he has his staff and he's hitting his staff on the ground. And Pharaoh's looking out the window and he sees him doing this. He's like, what is he doing? But every time that Moses stamps his staff on the ground, the dirt comes up, and out of the dirt comes all of these fleas. Tons and millions and trillions of fleas. And so, and they're going everywhere. It's like Egypt became dark with fleas. And there's fleas up your nostrils, and fleas in your eyeballs, and fleas in your curly hair. And he's freaking out. So he runs. And he actually starts ripping off his clothes because the fleas are now all under his clothes and he's all itchy and everything. And he runs and he's ripping his clothes off and he throws them into the pool as he's running. And he hears his underwear say, "Ew, get those clothes off of me!" And he stops because he knows his underwear are certainly not talking. And the frog is sitting there. And naked Pharaoh is now running towards his rooms and all of his servants are like, trying not to laugh. Okay. And they can hear him yelling as he goes, "I hate blood. I hate frogs. I hate fleas." So he's really not very happy, right? Okay, so now, the next day, Pharaoh's actually in the river. And he's trying to get everything cleaned off because he's just so afraid there's going to be any more fleas. And all of a sudden he looks up as he's like, cleaning himself. And there's Moses standing there. And Moses opens his mouth. And out of his mouth comes quadrillions of flies. Imagine that. Flies are coming out of Moses' mouth, and it's just really disgusting. In fact, Pharaoh says, "That's disgusting." And he jumps up out of the river, and he runs into the throne room, and he jumps into the pool. He kind of tries to hold his breath for a little while because he doesn't know what those flies are doing. And he comes up, right below his nose, and he's looking around. No flies, but there's that frog standing there. Well, actually, he's sort of plopped there because he's a big green frog. And he says, "These are really delicious. Would you like one?" And he says, "Time's fun when you're having flies." I thought you'd like that. I'm laughing at my own joke. Okay. So Pharaoh was so mad, he just bounded himself up out of the pool because he actually jumped in with his clothes on. And he says, "I hate blood. I hate frogs. I hate fleas. I hate flies. But I really hate that frog." So now the next day, Pharaoh wakes up and a servant comes running in and telling him that all of his cows are dead. They're all dead. It's amazing. And he's like lamenting, and he's like, "Oh no, oh me, oh my, why are my cows dead?" And the frog, of course, who is very close by, as you probably know by now, he says, "Oh me, oh my. Listen, buddy, your cows are dead because you are so stubborn that you will not let Moses' people go." And Pharaoh just jumps up and he's so angry and he says, "I'm not talking to you, frog. I want you to get out of my house, out of my pool, out of my life." Well, Frog said, "Okay." So he leaves the throne room just for a minute. And Pharaoh stomps back to his rooms and he says, "I hate blood. I hate frogs. I hate fleas. I hate flies. And I really hate dead cows. But if that frog comes back, he's going to be a dead frog." Now, the next day, Moses looks out and he sees, Pharaoh looks out of his palace and he sees Moses with his brother Aaron. And what are they doing? Well, they're taking the ash from the campfires and they're throwing them up into the air. And so Pharaoh thinks this is very funny. And so do all of his servants because they're watching this happening. And so Pharaoh says to Moses, "Oh, I'm so afraid now. You're throwing dirt. Oh, please don't throw dirt." But as they're throwing the ash up into the air, when it comes down, wherever it lands, forms a zit. This is the plague of zits. And everybody in Egypt is freaking out, especially the teenagers. They're so mad. There's a plague of zits happening. Now, of course, the frog has to give his advice to Pharaoh, and he says, listen, you are just the stupidest guy in the world. I mean, come on, really, your people have zits, you've lost your cattle. Just let his people go. And Pharaoh just says, no, I'm Pharaoh. I am the boss of me. I am the boss of you. I am the boss of everybody. I am a god. I can do whatever I want. At this point, he's actually grabbing his hair and pulling his hair out. He's just so frustrated and so mad. I'm not letting my people go just because they have a few zits. Forget it. Now, so he stomps off and he says, blood and frogs and flies and fleas and dead cows and zits. Too bad. I don't care. I hate all of them, but I really hate that frog. So the next morning when Pharaoh wakes up, he looks out and he sees there's something falling out of the sky. It's not frogs this time. It's balls of ice, which of course are very amazing because in Egypt it's probably about 90 degrees most of the time. And within each of the balls of ice there's fire in the middle of that. And he can hear all over Egypt people going, oh, ow, ooh, ow, oh man, that hurts. They're running all over the place trying to get out of the fireballs. And while he's under the covers, the frog says to him, okay, there was the blood plague, and then after that there was the frogs, that's how I got here. And then he says that there's, what am I saying? It wasn't he, because that would be wrong. I am saying. Then there's the fleas and the flies, and then there's the dead cows and the zits, and now the icy fireballs? Don't you get it? You need to let his people go. You're so stubborn. Just stop it already. He won't do it. He's being very stubborn. The next day while Pharaoh's eating his cereal, he's just munching away, and yummy, yummy cereal, whatever kind of cereal they make in Egypt there. He takes a bite and he goes, and he's looking at half a locust. Blech! Blech! Crunchy and gooey. Ah, disgusting. And he looks on the floor and there's locusts everywhere. And then he turns around and he sees sitting at the bowl of his cereal is the frog. And he's eating the locust. And he says, listen, I love plagues I can eat. The fleas were great. The flies were terrific. But the locusts, they are just fantastic. Keep it up, Einstein. Pharaoh says, who's Einstein? Never mind. Now, the next day Pharaoh wakes up at his usual time. And he sees it's dark outside. He's like, oh, I guess I got up too early. So he just pulls the covers over and goes fast to sleep. About 2 hours later he wakes up and he sees it's dark outside. And he's like, I must have the sun. I got to go back to bed. So he goes back to bed. A few hours later he wakes up and he realizes, wait a minute. He throws off the covers and he says, it's supposed to be daylight now. Where's the sun? And he goes out to the balcony and he looks and he sees where he is. It's all dark, but way over there in the camp of Moses, the sun is shining. He says, wait a minute. So he goes and he gets his binoculars and he looks over there and he sees that they're doing their everyday stuff in the sunshine over there. They're walking the dog, they're getting their mail, they're hanging out, they're having a latte at Starbucks. They're just doing everything over there. Well, he gets really mad. So he puts on a disguise and he goes over there. And he kind of listens in because he wants to see, what are these people saying? What's happening here? And he hears this woman say, Pharaoh is so stupid. What an idiot. Doesn't he know it's not good to have slaves? That's not right. You can't stand against freedom and you can't stand against God. And what about the people of his country? Come on. Blood, frogs, fleas, flies, dead cows. We don't have any food. Zits, locusts, and now it's dark. He needs to do something. Well, this really made Pharaoh mad, so he rips off his disguise. And he says to the people, I am Pharaoh. I can make the sunshine anytime I want. The crowd parts, and here comes Moses walking up to him. And he says, if you can make the sunshine anytime you want, why don't you make it shine over there in the darkness? Oh, well, I might when I feel like it. So of course, we know he can't do it. So Moses puts his arm around Pharaoh, and they walk off, the crowd parts, and they walk off a little bit to the side. And Moses says, listen to me and listen well. This is the last time you're going to see me. If you do not let my people go by this time tomorrow, you will be visited by the worst plague ever in your whole life. You cannot stand against freedom, and you cannot stand against God. You need to let my people go. Well, Pharaoh got really mad. He said, listen, God has nothing to do with anything. This is just a dumb run of luck. You know, I'm not worried about it. It's just bad luck. I'm going to get into good luck tomorrow because I'm going to go home, go to bed, get up in the morning, and everything will be just fine. And in fact, if you're not gone by this time tomorrow, I am going to have my soldiers kill you. And that stupid frog. And Moses says, what frog? And Pharaoh says, never mind. But we know that's not what happened. Now here's what happened. After the blood, after the frogs, after the fleas, after the flies, after the dead cows, after the zits, after the fiery balls, the fiery ice balls, after the locusts, and after the darkness came the death. Every firstborn of every animal and of every human being died that day. And that day, Pharaoh could be heard wailing and screaming and crying, bemoaning what had happened, because Moses was right. Now, did the people of Moses' people, when they left Egypt and packed up all of their stuff, did they go, nanny, nanny, boo-boo, ha ha, see, we're out of here? No. Did they cheer? No. Did they sing? No. They packed their stuff and they left, because they thought that Pharaoh's people had suffered enough. It's not like the Cecil B. DeMille movie that we're all familiar with. No, they didn't rub it in. They felt very sorry for the people of Egypt. So Pharaoh could be heard crying at every corner of Egypt. His wailing was so loud. But he kept hearing something. He couldn't figure out what it was, so he stopped crying for just a minute. You can't go against freedom, and you can't go against God. Ribbit, ribbit. And that is actually how Pharaoh let the people go. I bet you didn't know that, did you? So, the rabbis wrote these stories because, especially for the children, and also just for adults, just to help them remember the story, and also to understand the key points of actually what was happening in the Bible at the time, and to also make it connect to what's happening in people's lives in modern life. Thank you.
time in our service where we get to give back. We call this the blessing of the gifts. If you recite with me, it's in the orders of service. Today, I acknowledge God, omnipresent, as the source of all good, as the source of my good. With this acknowledgement, I accept His will, which is abundance in every aspect of my life. I release all thoughts of lack and limitation, and I am open and receptive to the increased flow of abundance to me right now. I joyfully accept the gifts of life and give freely of the special gift that I am. Through me, God omnipresent, blesses and multiplies this gift for all. Thank you, dear God.
Basket now. If you'd like to take a name or two out of there and pray for them during the week.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thanks everybody for coming out in this cold weather. I know that it's been a rough week weather-wise, but it's good to be here this morning and see all these smiling faces. We're going to start out with January's birthday list, and none of our birthday people are here, but we're going to sing happy birthday and have cake anyhow. Sue Lee, Kamara, and Martha Edwards all have birthdays. And has anybody else got a January birthday that we don't know about? Okay, well, let's sing happy birthday. Starting on January the 22nd, Monday night at 6:30, Nancy will start her spiritual psychology class. So please see Nancy for all the details and to sign up for that class. Also, this week's flowers are sponsored by Nancy in memory of her mom. Thank you, Nancy. Also, I passed around the flower schedule, so if you would like to sign up for flowers for the year or for a month or whatever, we would greatly appreciate it. They're $20 and you can sponsor them and give them to somebody or take them for yourself, whatever. So we appreciate anybody that does that. Also, if you did not get your Christmas pin when we passed them out for a couple weeks, let me know and we'll be glad to get you one. There was a little piece of paper in the orders of service. We have a little table set up in here in the annex. It's going to be a little fundraiser going on for the winter months. If you got, some people got 2 or 3 the same thing for Christmas, or you got something, it's called new and nearly new, Martha. So you may have gotten something that might have cost $50, and we're going to sell it for whatever. It's a fundraiser for the church. So there's a little table set up back there. If you've got something that you want to give and donate, and we'll put it in there. And if you go in there and look today, and it might be something you want to buy today. So we appreciate that. Other than that, did you have anything? Are you going to have a Wednesday night class? Somebody wanted to know.
There was a woman who was very, very famous at the time, at the turn of the century, actually. I'm blanking on her name, of all things. Okay, anyway, her mother was an invalid. She was a sickly child. In fact, they didn't think she was going to make it to adulthood, but she did. And she made it to adulthood. She got married and had 4 children. And her husband was a reporter. And he moved to Chicago. And she was never really had very good health. But she kept going anyway. And one day, in her mid-30s, somebody gave her a copy of Truth and Health by Mary Baker Eddy. And she found all sorts of flaws in this book, but it had ideas in it she found very powerful, very helpful. And without a practitioner, without anybody helping her, she used these ideas, and within 3 months, she was enjoying the best health she had had all her life. She became not only a convert to Christian Science, she became an advocate for it. And when Mary Baker Eddy, I should say, came to Chicago, she started taking classes, and she took all the classes that could be taken. Mary Baker Eddy saw in her a woman who was not only bright, very bright, but really a driven, an impassioned person who would be an asset to the organization. And so she in turn started encouraging her to teach and to preach and to advocate for Christian Science. And that is exactly what she did. She was not content just to preach and teach and that sort of thing. She decided she was going to write a book. She wrote this book and gave Mary Baker Eddy all the credit for the ideas and teaching her and all that. But when Mary Baker Eddy saw this book, she blew a fuse. See, nobody could write but Mary Baker Eddy. She had a tremendous need to control the organization. And she summarily wrote in the Christian Science Journal, which came out every month, criticizing the book and criticizing I can't remember her name. But she and summarily threw her out of the organization. Well, this did not stop her. This wasn't sufficient. It was sufficient just to encourage her that she had to keep going, but she had to change these ideas so that they were more coherent, they were more understandable, they were more reasonable. And that's exactly what she did. Instead of just squashing her, this woman's reputation grew and grew and grew and grew. Now, it was sort of like Emma Curtis Hopkins, who got tossed out of Christian Science. Reputation, she had a huge church after a while. She was publishing a magazine, writing books. She even wrote a novel. And she wrote a book called The Builder and the Plan. And it's out of print, but I have copies, permatext, or rather copied copies. And what I plan to do is not teach it, but experience it with a group of students. What we're going to do is read about 10 pages of it every week, and it's on half pages. In other words, it would be half pages, and they're 3/4 margins, so it isn't a lot of stuff to read. But it has questions, and what we will do is read it and look at the questions and think about answers for them and discuss them. So that's what I'm going to be doing on Wednesday nights. Now, cost will be $10 to put this thing together, because it'll be in a 3-ring binder, and they're about 150 pages or something like that. But again, it's half pages, and they're about this big. So there are a condensation of ideas in a few pages, and it should be fun. And we'll have maybe no, that's not her.
Is that going to start this? Is that going to start this Wednesday?
Yeah, I'm going to start this Wednesday, and it shouldn't be as cold as now.
In the 40s by now.
Thawing this week. So, and we'll take a little love offering just to cover the heats and the light and so forth. And per Wednesday.
Do you need Nancy to print that before?
Yes.
Yes,
Copy it?
maybe do. I'm gonna get it to you, absolutely.
Oh, okay, well, I'll be in the office Tuesday, so you'll have to give it to me
Yeah.
Tuesday at 1 o'clock.
Yeah, we'll have it in 3-ring binders, and it'll be an interesting challenge and sort of an adventure for all of us. Anybody who would like to join us. So,
What time is it going to be? Is it going to be to 5 or
5 o'clock.
5?
No, you're taking another class, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm gonna take one with Nancy.
Okay, so it will be at the time that the majority would like to meet, and anybody who's interested in this, come talk to me and we will negotiate and,
Figure out the time. Okay, and then I'll make a call about it. We'll, okay, all right, cool.
got it.
All right, it's all.
Oh, what's your name?
What's your name?
Ursula Gesterfeld.
No one could remember that.
Easy to remember.
That just came to you.
Westerfeld, never heard of her.
Ursula Gesterfeld, and she was famous, very famous. She had 600 people at her church.
Wow,
Goodness.
go Ursula. Call her Ursula G.
A couple other things. Usually in the first week of February, the League of Older Americans, we collect soup and crackers for them. So we will have we start in January so we can get a pretty good amount of soup. So we'll have a tub out next week for that. We'll be collecting through the first week in February. And also don't forget that we're doing an ongoing project for the Grove Elementary kids, a snack pack program. We have a list of items that they use for snacks. So that's an ongoing project all year round, that one is. So we'll have the tub next week for the soup and crackers. And, you know, we like to give back to the community as much as possible. So we appreciate everything everybody does. And come next door and have some cake.
It's birthday people on here.
Join me for our final hymn. It's hymn number 39, Peace Like a River, verses 1, 2, and 3. Hymn number 39, Peace Like a River, 1, 2, and 3.